Neurophysiological facilitation in improving lung volume. Although positioning is the most cost-effective way of maintaining lung volume, neurophysiological facilitation (NPF) is useful for some non-alert patients such as those who are drowsy post-operatively, those with neurological conditions, or those partially breathing on a ventilator, especially if they are unable to turn. It is thought that cutaneous and proprioceptive stimulation reflexively increases the depth of breathing, albeit in the short term. The perioral technique is thought to relate to the suckling reflex and may facilitate slow as well as deep breathing. Other effects seen with NPF are yawning, coughing, swallowing, abdominal contraction, and occasionally changes in consciousness. Some patients vary in their response from breath to breath, day to day. It is worth trying slightly different finger positions and pressures and sometimes finger vibrations. Effects may be cumulative. Rib springing. Rib springing is chest compression on expiration with overpressure downwards and inwards in the bucket handle direction of rib movement, then a quick release at the end expiration. This may cause a deeper subsequent inspiration, especially when performed slowly and smoothly. It is sometimes used with paralyzed patients but is less effective, less comfortable, and less safe than NPF. Therapist's finger on top lip between tip and nose. Therapist's hands, intercostal muscles, ribs. Direction of pressure down towards next rib, not in towards patient's back. Direction of pressure, therapist's hands. Direction of pressure. Mechanical aids to lung volume, to increase lung volume. If previous measures are ineffective, a variety of mechanical aids are available to increase lung volume. Physiotherapists are ideally suited to match people to machines because of their patient handling skills and understanding of physiology. Incentive spirometry. A sustained deep breath can be facilitated by an incentive spirometer, which gives visual feedback on flow and volume. The Koch and Waldine devices encourage slow and controlled inhalation by maintaining a marker indicating flow between two arrows and encourage an end inspiratory hold while a disc indicating volume descends. In the Triflow device, 2 out of 3 plastic balls should be raised and the breath sustained for some seconds while they are suspended. The third ball is a control and should not be raised because this indicates high flow and turbulence. The Triflow is less encouraging for sustaining an end inspiratory hold, and it is possible to cheat by taking short, sharp breaths. The suggested technique is the following. A demonstration is given using a separate device. Patient should be relaxed and positioned as for deep breathing, either side lying or sitting upright, preferably in a chair. With lips sealed around the mouthpiece, the patient inhales slowly and deeply. Incentive spirometer. Throughout the procedure, the patient watches the incentive spirometer while the physiotherapist monitors the patient's breathing pattern and an end inspiratory hold is sustained. After exhalation, shoulder girder relaxation is rechecked. Those on oxygen can use nasal cannulae or an incentive spirometer which entrains oxygen. People with tracheostomies can use a connecting tube. Once technique is faultless, patients are asked to take 10 incentive spirometry breaths per waking hour. Most devices are labeled for single patient use, but a filter in the circuit and discussion with the infection control department has enabled some hospitals to reuse the main component while disposing of the tubing and filter. The same effect can be obtained without the incentive spirometer, but the incentive of using a device often causes greater inhaled volume, a more controlled flow, and more enthusiasm to practice. However, individuals vary. An observation of expansion and breathing patterns shows whether the patient breathes more effectively with or without the device. Incentive spirometry is also suited to children and those with learning difficulties because it can be learned by demonstration. It is not suitable for breathless patients. Continuous positive airway pressure. For spontaneously breathing patients who cannot muster the breath for incentive spirometry, resting lung volume and gas exchange can be improved by pneumatically splinting open the airways and alveoli with continuous positive airway pressure (CPAP). A CPAP device delivers a constant flow of gas throughout inspiration and expiration. This exceeds the flow rate of patients even when they are breathless. It is like a person putting their head out of the window of a rapidly moving car. CPAP circuit. The system. A flow generator connects to the oxygen supply, entrains room air through a filter to give between 30 and 100% oxygen, and generates gas flows of up to 150 liters per minute. The components needed to generate and withstand high flows are illustrated in figure 6.7. The patient breathes through a face mask, nasal mask, mouthpiece for intermittent use, or T-piece if intubated. Positive pressure is maintained by a preset threshold resistor valve (CPAP valve), which is independent of flow and provides a constant pressure of between 2.5 and 20 cm H2O. An oxygen analyzer monitors the FiO2 and an oximeter monitors the patient's response. To reduce the dryness of high gas flows, a heat moisture exchanger may be adequate, but for patients with thick secretions or who cannot acclimatize to the dryness, the high flows of CPAP require an efficient humidifier or two humidifiers in series. Modern systems incorporate a high pressure alarm. Technique. Suggested guidelines for the following. Patients using a full face mask should be in a high dependency area or kept under constant observation because of difficulty in expectoration and danger of aspirating vomit. A CPAP valve is chosen that provides pressure low enough to be comfortable but high enough to maintain adequate gas exchange, usually 5 to 10 cm H2O. The patient is introduced to the mask. Oxygen is adjusted to required FiO2. The flow is turned on. The patient assists with putting on the mask if possible in order to reduce anxiety. It is best that the mask is not strapped on until the patient has felt the flow and is ready. Flow should be at a level sufficient to maintain an open CPAP valve even during a deep breath. Fine tuning trims it to just above the patient's peak inspiratory flow so that there is outflow from the valve throughout the cycle, while the mask has a firm but comfortable seal. The outflow should be rechecked after the patient has settled. The oximeter should be rechecked after changing the flow and FiO2 adjusted if appropriate. Regular checks are required on the comfort and seal of the mask, the fluid level and temperature of the humidifier, and the oximeter. After use, the mask should be removed before turning off the flow. A nasal mask and domestic device are used overnight for people with obstructive sleep apnea. This may allow some air to escape through the mouth, but the high flow means that some leak is acceptable. Excessive leak can be controlled by a chin strap or soft collar. Effects: when the above steps are followed and comfort is maintained, CPAP increases FRC, improves gas exchange, and may avoid the need for intubation and mechanical ventilation. Atelectasis may be prevented, but re-expansion of collapsed lung tissue requires sustained pressure of more than 15 cm H2O, which are usually intolerable for an alert patient and bring significant complications. CPAP can also be used for patients with pneumonia or increased WOB due to obstructed airways. It can assist gas exchange for people with pulmonary edema as an interim measure until medication takes effect. Effect of CPAP on lung volumes. Complications: discomfort is common and uncomfortable patients restrict their depth of breathing. Individual adjustment of the mask or a change of mask may be needed to prevent chapped skin, sore ears, or dry eyes. The bridge of the nose should be protected before rather than after a pressure sore develops, using a dressing such as Granuflex, especially in patients who are hypotensive, hypovolemic, or with thin skin because of aging or long-term steroids. The mask seal is assisted by having the dentures in. Claustrophobic patients need sensitive handling. WOB may be increased and partial pressure of oxygen decreased because of difficulty in exhalation against positive pressure. If there is loss of lung or chest wall elasticity, patients might be forced to use even more active exhalation. At high pressures, gas can be forced into the stomach, causing discomfort and restricted breathing. The risk is reduced by using a nasogastric tube, which is advisable at pressures over 10 cm H2O. If girth is measured to assess for abdominal distension, this should be explained as it has been interpreted as measuring for a coffin. Aspiration is a risk for patients unable to remove the mask rapidly by themselves. The mask must be removed for eating and drinking. Coughing without removing the mask can create high pressures which may damage the ears, and with emphysema or late stage CF, risk causing a pneumothorax. Some protocols advise that positive pressure techniques should only be used on wards with access to chest drain equipment. The system is noisy, which may be detrimental to the patient and neighbors. The hemodynamic effects of CPAP vary. Positive pressure may compress alveolar vessels, redistribute blood from chest to abdomen, and at pressures above 10 cm H2O, increase right ventricle afterload. Although cardiac output normally depends on preload, poor ventricular function renders it dependent on afterload, in which case cardiac output may be impaired by CPAP, especially in hypovolemic patients. For people with normal heart function, pressures above 15 cm H2O can impair cardiac output. CO2 retention can occur if a hypercapnic patient breathes with a small tidal volume against a high pressure valve. Precautions: CPAP should not normally be used in the presence of an undrained pneumothorax, surgical emphysema, bullae, facial trauma, excessive secretions. It should be used with caution in the presence of bronchopleural fistula, a large tumor in the proximal airways, because inspired gas under pressure may be able to enter but not exit past the obstruction. Two conditions for which CPAP may be useful with precautions are the following. Following esophageal surgery, CPAP assists gas exchange, but a nasogastric tube is required to prevent positive pressure jeopardizing the anastomosis. A flail chest can be stabilized with CPAP so long as there is no undrained pneumothorax.